Welcome to the Transatlantic Playbook. So today we are honored to have our guest Erica Hart join us from the casting community. She's one of the most prolific casting directors that we work with. We've done a lot of work with her over the years, and I want to get straight into it because I don't want to hold anything back. Erica, welcome to the Transatlantic Playbook.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Excited to have this conversation. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So, just asking just traditional questions, that's what we're going to get into. But first, I want people to understand you. I want everybody to know, the people that we work with, to understand how you started in this business. How did you get started? What made you say to yourself one day, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be casting director? What was that journey?
Well, I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a casting director because I didn't know what a casting director was. I grew up thinking that I was going to be somewhat backtrack. I grew up thinking I was going to be a detective. And this is like a full circle moment. But I wanted to be a detective. And then I got my first camera when I was 9. And after that, I was like, I think I want to be in the entertainment industry, whatever that means. I went to film school. I went to NYU for film and TV. And when I entered NYU, I thought I was going to be a music video director because I have a dance background. I played instruments, film, TV. So I thought that was the marriage of all types of things. And within about 6 weeks, I found casting. A friend of mine wanted to do a film outside of the curriculum, and she printed out a crew list, and we were 18, and the second to last thing was casting director. And because I had a dance background and I knew what the term audition was, I thought to myself, I could do this job. And that's what I did. And I cast this film. I had no idea what I was doing, but everyone, I guess, took notice. And I wasn't a threat to anyone. I was actually an asset while everyone was trying to be the best director, the best producer, the best writer. I was in the corner doing that thing. And that thing was casting. And so no one really knew what it was, but they, again, saw that it was helpful. And they would say, hey, you did that weird thing for that one film. Can you do that thing for my film? And I just said yes. And I cast all through school. And my junior year was the first time I thought, I think this could be a career. And that's how I got started.
So it wasn't like somebody led you into it like a mentor or somebody came along and said, hey, come and do this with us. So when you decided to actually, become the casting director, did you have to kind of like join another casting office, or did you have to reach out to other casting directors? How did that play out?
I interned my senior year at NBC Casting, which was great because I got to see the both sides of casting. I got to see the studio network side during pilot season and what that looks like. And I did it for a year. So I got to see what that looked like. And then they were also casting 30 Rock in house. So I got to see what independent casting looked like. So I got to see what casting series regulars on a new hit network show. And then I got to see what casting bartender number 6 looked like on a show that was already up and running. They were on season 5. When I interned, it was a great springboard into learning both sides of casting. But no, I after that, I applied for jobs and I landed at ABC. And no, I really kind of went through not really knowing anything, not really knowing anyone in casting. I just bet on myself and I said, this is what I'm going to do. And I was still casting other films on the side. So I was still casting like my classmates' short films and feature films and commercials and, things like that. It just wasn't enough to sustain myself and to pay the bills. But I was very lucky that the thing to pay my bills was still in casting. So I was, a casting assistant or an associate casting director or a casting coordinator. And I was able to pay my bills that way. And that was great because I got to talk to agents and managers like yourself while I was at bigger offices, but while I was still building my own business. So it was a great way to keep that synergy while still also learning how to run my office, learning how to run any office, let alone my own, but learning my taste and figuring out how to run a casting office.
So what about your family? Were they understanding what you were doing? Did they say, hey, this is great, you're going to be a casting director? Did they know what it entailed?
No, My dad was a entertainment lawyer, and he did documentaries on the side, but no one really understood what a casting director was, and honestly, no one in the really a lot of people in the business don't know what a casting director is,
Still.
you know? I'm close to 20 years in the game, and I'm still like, big producers, big directors, I still have to, you know, define what we do. So, in hindsight, that's really not uncommon, one were
Mm,
to say. But no, I think I was very lucky that my parents supported in whatever I wanted to do, and, there was never, you know, "Oh, you should do this," or, "Oh, this is not a real career," or, "Oh," like, I never got that, from my parents, so I was very, very lucky. It was just, you know, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna do it well, and if you're gonna do this, you're gonna be able to sustain yourself, you know? So, yeah, I was very lucky where even though they didn't understand it, it was still okay for me to pursue it.
got you. So, as you know, we at agents, we get a bad rap too. I keep telling people
Mhm,
that if there was no need for agents, they would have found Hollywood would have found a way to extinguish us a long time ago. But casting directors are really the linchpin. You know, they're the
mm,
gateway. I mean, even though we are always submitting to you guys, saying, hey, what about this person? Here, what about this person? You guys are the ones that have to sift through thousands of faces. I mean,
mhm,
well, I'm going to ask two questions, but the first one is you said you've been in the game like close to, 20 years. So you've seen a lot
mhm,
of changes from
mhm,
network to streaming to. So,
mhm.
what is your take on how casting has changed in those 20 years? What are you finding overall?
Well, you know, I think just the baseline over these last 6 years of how the industry has changed when it comes to the process of casting, you know? We're not in rooms anymore, you know, theater is different because it is a live medium, so there will probably be a callback process or final callback process where you are in space with the director and the playwright and the casting director and maybe the artistic director if it's institutional theater, so there is that aspect of it, but for film and TV, getting in the room is rare, you know, because casting directors, a lot of them don't have offices anymore, and certain entities don't wanna pay for offices, so it's not that we don't necessarily not want to be in the room, it's the ability to be in the room, and I know there's a lot of back and forth about, you know, casting directors should be in the room, and this is how one should cast, and all of that things and everything about that, but we need space, and
Well,
space costs money, and to
yeah,
run a
that's true.
session like that, it is that, so that's why I say, like, if given the chance to have a live audition, be it on Zoom or in person, if you are comfortable with that, take it, but just realize that there are a lot of, hurdles that one needs to be in the room, and nothing is free, as we know.
Right. Do you think that
So,
like the self-tape has taken the human aspect away from it? Like, you don't get
it's
to
taken
meet
a
the actor until he's actually
yeah.
cast?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it takes away the human aspect of it because at the end of the day, a human is taping themselves and a human is watching it, you know? So I wouldn't say it has taken the human aspect out of it. I think it has taken away the liveness of it, you know, the adjustment of it, you know, the anxiousness in the waiting room of it, you know, the nerves of walking into a room for both sides. Like I think a lot of actors don't realize that we're nervous too. You know, like we're nervous during session because we want you to do well, you know, we want you to kill it. And so we feel those nerves, but I think it takes away I wouldn't call it the humanness, but it does take away it takes away the process that we have known for these last few decades. But at the same time, self-tape was already here, you know, it just wasn't a
Yeah.
necessity. It was, you know, and some offices were using self-tapes exclusively, you know, to run their sessions. But, you know, I think the beauty of self-tape is that we're able to see more and we're able to be introduced to more actors and we're able to play a little bit more because time is a construct. And if I'm in a session from 10 to 6, I can only see a certain amount of people that day. Whereas with self-tapes, I can see more and I can be introduced to more. And if I'm working on a comedy and I'm not sure about your comedic chops or whatever, I'm like, yeah, there's something about them. Let's just try it. And so that idea of let's just try it is a little bit more on this side.
Yeah. So when you meet an actor on Zoom and, obviously you can now meet 50 actors on Zoom instead of 10 in the room,
Mhm.
does that make the competition like harder to kind of like filter down to that, the last two or three that the producers might want? Because now you're looking at, 5,000 you're not looking at 5,000 self tapes.
No, no, I'm
You know,
not looking at 5,000
you know what I
self-tapes.
mean?
No, no,
When you put
no.
out,
I might
when you
get
put out,
5,000 submissions. I might get
right,
5,000 submissions, but
right, you
I'm
get,
not requesting 5,000
no,
self-tapes.
no, no. But if you're
Yeah.
doing a big, large project and you put
Mhm.
out, it's a series regular, you're going to get 5,000 submissions for that one
Yeah,
role, or,
yeah,
3,000 or whatever, breakdowns,
yeah.
casting, wherever it is that you go on, filtering that down to 25 people. I mean, like,
Mhm,
how many, self tapes or time that you have to
mhm.
watch. You know what I mean? Do you watch them all the way through? Do you like just watch the
Yes,
first 10
yes.
seconds?
No, you gotta watch every tape. You gotta watch every tape because you never know what's gonna happen. I mean, but the beginning is important, Like I always say, you gotta catch us in the first 10 seconds because I think what other people don't realize is it doesn't stop with the casting director. It has to go to the creative team. And then from the creative team, it has to go to, if it's a television show, it has to then go to the execs. Or if it's a institutional theater, it has to go to the artistic directors. Like it doesn't stop with the casting director. And what I always say is you have to realize that the casting director's job is to cast. But as soon as it goes to another person on the creative team, be it the showrunner, producer, director, whatever it is, they have more stuff that they are responsible for, right? So the showrunner is responsible for the whole show. They're responsible for casting, approving casting. They're responsible for approving costumes. They're responsible for holding down the writing room. They're responsible for all of these things, and they might not have the time to go through your whole tape. And I know that's tricky and they want to, but they might have 10 minutes to watch 70 tapes because they
Wow.
have, a
That many.
studio meeting to talk to,
Okay.
70,
Okay.
so
That's fair
that's what
enough.
I always say is like my responsibility is to cast the show. But as soon as you go to other people that have to say yes in order for you to be on set, they have more responsibilities.
So let me ask you something a little bit off script, okay?
Mhm.
And it's something that's always been in the back of my mind. Like when you get
Mhm.
a nepo hire, so you've got an exec who says, "I want my nephew to be in that role,"
Mhm.
and you just received like 400 submissions,
Mhm.
for this particular role. How do you handle something like that? You've got this incumbent now where you're like,
Mhm.
is this role going to this person? So
Mhm.
what 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 is the thinking process behind that? Or some of the reasons behind that?
Some of the reasons of why they want their nephew?
Okay,
They
not
want their
someone.
nephew. There's no reason behind it. They want their nephew.
I was
Like,
trying to be
I don't
like,
know what
I was trying to be a little
there's
bit more
no
like
no,
diplomatic
there's
about
no
it.
listen, our world is on fire. There is no reason for a lot of stuff that's happening. It's what's it an actress that I love, her name is Gamila Wright. She is a beautiful actress, but she also teaches at, I believe, Atlantic. And she said, this stuff is so easy, it's complicated. Like
Mm,
sometimes it's so easy that it's complicated. And if the head of, a certain network or the head of a certain production company or even the showrunner or whatever wants their nephew, their son, their dog walker's daughter to be in the show, you have to realize that at the end of the day, it's not my decision.
right. But the
My
casting
job.
director has to like kind of like, kind of massage it in a way because, the breakdown was put out. You know what I
The
mean? The
breakdown was put
submissions
out.
came out.
We saw tape, the submissions came out. We put out appointments and we sent tapes, and at the end of the day, if they pick their nephew that taped, they picked their nephew that taped. Or if they say, you know what, actually, after seeing all these tapes, they were so great, I want to go with my nephew. As a casting director, I can push back, hopefully, depending on the team, and say, like, hey, like, that's great. I just want to highlight this person just in case they got lost in the mix or something. Just
Gotcha.
would love to point out this person. They're like, no, 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 they're great, but I think my nephew would be great too. And
Right.
it's sort of like, what can I do? It's not my
Yeah,
show. I'm
it goes
helping to move
beyond
the
that.
show.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
well, we're
there's
learning
so
that.
many things above
Yep.
my pay grade. And what I have told people is you have to realize that the stuff that you can't control is none of your business. So if you're so and so, if you are not so and so's nephew or niece or child or whatever it may be, there's nothing you can do to change that.
Well,
If
yeah.
you're someone who's like, oh, well, this person has 3 million followers and I only have 3 followers, they're going to go with the person with 3 million followers. A, not necessarily. And B, if they go with that and that is the reason, what can you do to change that? Nothing.
I
So
mean, you know.
why are we thinking about this? Right?
So,
It's the stuff that you can do. It's the stuff that you can control should be the stuff that you're worried about. At the end of the day, I'm not Denzel Washington's daughter. I am Thomas Hart and Norma Hart's daughter, and I'm very proud of that. I can't change that, you know? And so I think sometimes we hold on to things that we can't change and that we can't control that might be the reason or might be the factor. But at the end of the day, it went that way. So move to the next.
yeah,
Get on the
many
next
actors
train.
are good at that. Many actors are good. It's a lot of the clients that we have, they just move on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To whatever it is. So,
And rejection is protection. It wasn't yours. It wasn't
well, yeah,
yours.
that's a way of looking at it too. So, with the agent and casting director relationship,
Mhm.
so, what is your ideal kind of like, what is your ideal relationship with an agent look like? Obviously, I'm asking for myself.
Mm. Mhm.
You know what I mean? But, like, I mean,
Mhm.
I've been working back and forth with you, and I've no
Yeah,
problem, whatever.
forever.
But
Yeah.
what does that look like from, like, large agencies to mid-sized agencies to smaller agencies? What does those relationships look like for you?
I think it's just the understanding that we're both doing our jobs. I think it's the understanding that this is a collaboration. I think it's an understanding and realizing there are going to be times where you need me and there are going to be times where I need you, right? And I know the phrase of buyer and seller is thrown around and it's like, well, casting's the buyer and the agent is the seller. But if I'm working on a small independent project that pays $2 and a stick of gum, I then become the seller and you guys become the buyer. And I'm the ones to be like, hey, I know this pays $2 and a stick of gum. Please read it. It's really great. All that stuff. And so then I have to sell the script. Whereas if I'm working on a bigger network television show or a big studio film, it's not a hard sell. Whereas working sometimes on these indie projects or this lower budget, or maybe it's a first time director or first time whatever, it's a sell. And so I just, it goes back and forth of like these agents are pushing and I give grace because that's your job. Your job is
I
to
know
push.
people
Your
people
job is to
get mad
submit.
at us when we do that. They're
But
like, "Why
I
are you
try
asking
not
for more
to.
money?"
Well, I try to give grace and I'm like, hey, this is your job. Now, there is a line. There is a line. If you're calling me at 11 o'clock at night or texting me at 11 o'clock at night, pushing your client, that's a little bit of a line. It's like, do we need to do this right now on a Monday night at 11? Really? We need to do this? Just like I would hope that I wouldn't be sending an offer at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, or I wouldn't send you an appointment at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. So I think there just needs to be an understanding and a respect for both situations. And also, if you are pushing someone, make sure that those pushes make sense and make sure that you are reading the breakdown. And if it says that the character is a 20-year-old Black woman, that why are we submitting 20-year-old white women?
Well, some
you
people like
know?
to talk about non-traditional casting. I know agents, colleagues
Sure.
of mine who are like, well, they could turn this role black or they could turn this role Asian. You know what I mean?
That's fine.
And
But if the breakdown says 20-year-old Black woman, that's what I'm looking for at this moment. Now, if it says 20-year-old, open ethnicities, open gender, open whatever, we are open. Let's go. But if I say a 20-year-old white woman or a 20-year-old Asian non-binary person or a person who walks the life with a cane, like I am specifically saying what I am looking for. And if you're like, hey, I have this out of the box idea, then say that it's an out of the box idea, or or better yet, call me and say like, hey, I saw the breakdown that you just put out. I have an idea. I know it sounds a little out of the box, but I have an idea. Just call. Let's have a conversation. But I think I often get a lot of submissions where I get frustrated because I'm like, you didn't even read the breakdown. You just saw one piece. Maybe you just saw 20s and you're like, oh, okay, 20s. And it's like, well, there's a specific reason why I put out this breakdown the way that I put out this breakdown. And you're just not reading.
trying to get more money, like everybody says.
Listen,
But
but I also have to do my job. We can all
exactly.
try to get more money, but you're wasting time. You're wasting your time by putting people in the breakdown that has nothing to do with the breakdown, and you're wasting my time because I have to go through that.
And that's the 5,000. That's where the number 5,000 comes from.
So
You
it's
know.
sort of just like, I understand breakdowns are going out fast, and I understand that my breakdown is not the only breakdown. And at the same time, just read it. Just read it.
And what about like, self-submissions from actors, the ones that
Mhm.
you get directly, and then
Yeah.
you get them from their agents as well, and then you get them
Mhm.
from their managers. So you have 3
Mhm.
submissions of the same person,
Mhm.
what I mean, from multiple different places. I mean, what is your philosophy on multiple submissions?
Mad at it. I'm
Well,
not
would
mad
you
at
would
it.
you would you prioritize one over the other? I mean, like, would you say, "Oh, I'm going straight to the agent. I'm going straight to the actor. I'm going straight to the manager. I'm going straight to the
Well, if
publicist."
the not the publicist. That's the last frontier. That's it if you have
I
nothing.
threw
Yeah,
that
like
one
if
in
you have
there.
nothing. No, but like I would never go direct to an actor unless the director is not represented. So if
Mm,
the actor is not represented, then I will go straight to the actor, right? But if the actor has an agent or manager, I'm going to go to the agent or manager because that's the right, process.
right. But you don't have a thing about the manager submitting to you as opposed to the agent, because there's some agents in management where they both are submitting in the same
Yes.
city.
Yeah. Well, classically, how I was taught was the appointment should go to the agent. So if a manager and an agent is submitting and I see both at the same time, then I'm going to give it to the agent because that's how I was taught that the agent gets the appointment. Now, if I don't see, if the manager submits first and I see that, then I'm going to give it to the manager. But at the end of the day, what do we want? We want the client to get the appointment, right?
Exactly.
If your client books, regardless if it comes from the agent or the manager, you still get your money. That's you talking about. You still get your 10%. So why are we calling my assistant and yelling at them because so and so got the appointment and so didn't get the appointment? The question is, did your person get the appointment? If the answer is yes, get off my phone.
Well, there is talk that, and this is where it becomes controversial because the agent will argue that, well, managers are not supposed to be procuring work. They're supposed to be
Yeah,
doing development and blah, blah,
sure.
blah. I mean, I have management, that I have no problems with, and we work in, tandem very, very well. But
Yeah.
there are instances where, the manager will try to procure that work and the agent has no idea. You know what I mean? And then the agent will probably submit maybe, an hour later or a few
Mhm.
hours later. And then the
Mhm.
casting director will give it to the manager. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So they'll say, well, that's the one that I saw first. So
That's
there's
the one I saw
always this
first.
yeah. So there's always this kind of like back and forth in why people kind of butt heads.
But did the client get the appointment?
Right. And
And
they
did the
did.
client book? Did the client book?
Yes, they did.
And did you get your 10%?
Well, it wasn't my client, and it wasn't.
But
I didn't have that
I'm
problem.
just saying,
You know?
if that was the problem, those were my 3 questions. Did the client get the appointment? Yes. Did the client book or, whatever it may be? Yes. Did you get your 10%? Yes. So then why are we talking about this? That's my thing. Now, if you didn't get your 10%, then whatever.
Well,
But
by then
again,
it's so far down the road. You know
yeah,
what I
but
mean?
no,
Like,
I mean, I remember getting yelled at by agents, not necessarily managers, but I used to get yelled at by agents because I would put out the appointment via the manager. Not to spite the agent, but it's like you said, I just saw the appointment from, excuse me, I saw the submission from the manager first. It had nothing to do, I wasn't trying to disrespect you. I wasn't trying to disrespect your office. I wasn't trying to do nothing. I was just trying to get your client in. I don't need to get your client in. I don't need to get your client in. If that's the issue, I don't need to do that, you know? But if I'm going to get your client in, especially if I'm working on a TV show that's fast, TV is fast. I know some TV
very
shows
fast.
where if you don't submit within the hour, you are not going to be seen. I know there's shows like that. When I was working on The Equalizer or other shows like it, if you didn't submit within a day or two, you have to realize I have to cast the show in 8 days or less
Yeah.
than that because the table read is the
Breakdowns are
next
dead
day.
after about 12
So
hours.
it's
Yep.
sort of like I'm trying to get people in, and the client just wants to be seen. The client just wants to get an appointment. And I understand there's a territory between this. And I understand that, classically back in the day, the manager wasn't allowed to submit. It was only the agents that were allowed. But now
Back in
things
the
have
day.
changed. And like you said, the industry is so ever changing and the rules are changing. And so now managers are on breakdowns. And sometimes the agent doesn't submit their client, but the manager does, because either the agent forgets or the agent doesn't see that person or whatever it may be, but the manager does. And then the manager gets the appointment, and then I see the agent then submit after the manager got the appointment, because then it's like, oh, well, I got to submit too, But there's so many politics, and I try to stay out of
Absolutely. There's
that.
so many variables to that.
And
Like,
what I always say is like, my job is to get your client in, and I got them in. Now, if you all want to fight with yourselves, leave me out of it, but I'm trying to get your client a job.
I hear that. I hear that. So when it comes to, just the industry in general, when it comes to television and film, just changing gears here,
Mhm.
where do you see it heading? I know that we're going into AI, and I'm asking you to take out your crystal ball, but like, how do you feel that it's changing? Because AI definitely, the landscape has already changed because of AI.
Sure.
So what are you seeing? What are you feeling?
Well, it kind of depends on the day. I think, how do I put this in a very succinct, focused way? I think the industry has changed. This goes without saying. That is the easiest answer I can give. The industry has changed. But the industry will always change because we are in an evolving world. We are an evolving time. You have 3 different, I was looking at something recently. You have 3 different ages that made the most impact. The agricultural age, or the agricultural revolution, I would say, which is, long, 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 long time ago.
Candles to electricity. Is that the one you're
The
talking about?
Industrial Revolution, the
Yeah.
Industrial Revolution, and now we are in the knowledge age, the knowledge revolution, right? And so those are the 3 things to change the process of how we live. And everything's going to change. We went from using pens, and this is even a change, right? We used to have feather pens and all that stuff, and you'd have to dip and you have to write, and it would take forever to write. And now we have ballpoint pens. And from that, we got computers. And from that, we got typewriters, and typewriters, we got computers. So it's always going to change. Things are always going to change. The industry is not the industry I came in to when I graduated. It's harder. I will say that on record. It is harder to get into this industry. It's always been hard,
is.
but it is harder now than it was before. And the truth of the matter is, like you said, there's AI. Now, as we have seen in the last couple of months, actually, AI is not what they thought it was going to be. It's more expensive. There are some things that are shutting down. There's some things that are taking away AI, whatever it may be. But this is an evolving industry and an evolving technology. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I just think that all we know is now. And all we know is we can do good work now and find ways to fill your cup, regardless of if we were in a changing age or not, but find other things to fill your cup. And I think that's during the pandemic, a lot of people dealt with a lot of this because they put all of their life into this work, and then this work was taken away, especially theater. Theater was taken away right off the jump, and it was just like, well, then who am I without the stage? Who am I without the screen? Who am I without an audition? Who am I without this? And we were left holding the bag of trying to figure out who we were. And you got to find things to fill your cup. We are artists, and the toolbox, you have to fill your toolbox with tools that make you feel full, that make you feel joyful, that make you feel complete, whatever that may be. It could be rock climbing, it could be painting, it could be writing, it could be, going for a walk with a friend, whatever it is. Just find those things that make you you, and don't forget
That's
them.
that is profound words. I totally agree, that, you have to fill your cup, as you said. And everything's always changing. There's one thing that you can definitely count on in being, alive, is that there will be change.
Yes.
So what kind of skill set do you think that would make the most sense going forward for, not just that, but, creatives in general? What skills? I know that people say, well, narrow your focus. That's one of the things that I've been
Mm,
telling my actors, is to become deeper in one thing. But obviously people
mm,
are very scared. They're still thinking about, am I pigeonholing myself? Is that a thing
mm,
anymore?
mm.
What do you
Well,
see as that skill set that you should kind of like bring out?
it's funny you use the term pigeonhole. I was talking to a group of students, like people who just graduated for undergrad, so a bunch of 22, 23-year-olds, and I always get this question of pigeonhole. Like, I don't want to be pigeonholed. And I was like, well, baby, you want to be cast. Like, the pigeonhole is actually a privilege, because that means you've been cast so much in this one specific thing that you yourself feel that you are being boxed in. But in order to be boxed in, you have to be cast, and not only cast once, but cast multiple times for you to feel this way. So there is a privilege of doing that, of being in that predicament. But I'm just like, you just graduated from school. Why are you worried about being pigeonholed?
I know, that's
Let's
the
see,
first thing
let's
they'll say
see,
to
let's
me.
see the receipts first.
I
Let's
don't
see the
want to be
receipts first.
typecast.
But you want to be cast, right?
Exactly.
So let's get there first. Let's
Mm.
be cast first, and then be cast again, and then be cast again, and then let's have a conversation after you see a pattern. Because if you haven't been cast yet, there's no pattern. So let's work on that first, and then once we get there, we can talk about that, and we can see, what things can move. But I would say, skill set is based off of the person. I would say, what skills do you feel that needs a little bit sharpening, and not necessarily acting wise, but like, are you someone I can trust? Are you someone who's always on time? Are you someone who, if I have a deadline of 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, you're always late for that deadline? Do you have a time management problem? Do you get enough sleep? Do you drink a lot of water? Like, are you in the gym? Whatever that may be, you don't need to be lifting weights or whatever, but are you moving your body? Are you taking care of the vessel that is the thing that then to push you to this thing? So I would just say, more on a professional level, check those skills, regardless of what you want to be. If you want to be an actor, if you want to be a musician, if you want to be a casting director, if you want to be a grip, we all have time deadlines that we need to be on. We all have a set of skills that we need, for casting. You have to be organized. You have to be really good at admin. You have to be really good at deadlines. You have to be really good at time management. You have to love actors. You have to watch everything. You have to, dive deep in the world of whatever you are casting, and honestly, all of the worlds. But I wouldn't say there's a specific skill set. I think that's a person by person based. And I think that's a scary piece of the work, is being self-aware, and self-reflective and looking at yourself in the mirror and figuring out the things that you are good at and figuring out the things that not necessarily that you are bad at, but the things that you could improve upon to make yourself just a better artist or baseline a better person that someone could trust to put you on the set, to trust you, to put you in the rehearsal room in order to be what you're trying to be.
Well said. Well said. Well, the conversation today is very enlightening. I want to thank you very, very
Thank you.
much, very sincerely. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. Like I said, any closing words that you want to just kind of give out there, anything that you want to say, please say it now. Is there anything that you want to leave as just words of advice for people who are still, slogging away at this industry?
Yeah.
They may be disheartened. They may be feeling that, what, this is, like you said, it's harder to get in.
Yeah.
This is too hard. What would you say to them?
This game is not only about talent, there are so many other factors that are a piece of the puzzle that you don't even know. This game is a stamina game. Sometimes it is, if anybody runs track, sometimes it is 100, sometimes it is a 200, but a lot of the times it's a 400, which is the hardest race because you feel like you're sprinting, but it is a longer sprint, and it's stamina. It is a marathon in that regard. 10 years does equal 1 year because I talked to a lot of people and they're just like, oh, I just graduated school. And I was like, well, how long have you been out of school? They're like 2 months. And I was like, oh, honey, 2 months, sweetie pie, we got a long way to go. But if you are just looking for instant, if you are looking just to be booked right out of school, if you are looking
many
to be
people are.
booked,
Many people
and
are.
many people are. I'm not saying that they aren't. But if you are looking for that type of industry where you get full, quick moments, this industry might not be for you because there are people who have been in this game for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and are just getting traction,
Yeah.
And that's why I always bow to people who are like, you know what, this is not for me anymore. I've done it. I've done what I could do, and it's time for me to leave. I totally understand that. And then I totally understand the people where it's like, it's only a matter of time. Because it is. It's only a matter of time. You got to pick up those darts and keep throwing them at the dartboard, and you will hit a bullseye. But it is a long, 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 long road. It is a stamina game, and you can't look at the people who are in your lanes next to you. Because like you said, there are people who are going to book right out of school. And there are going to be people who book right out of school and then you're never going to hear from them again.
Right.
Or you're going to find people that it takes 10 years for them to get that momentum. And you're like, oh, wow, it took them 10 years. And then you're going to see people where it took 2 years. You just got to run your race, stay in your lane, hit those curves, and you'll hit it. You'll hit it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I want you back on this podcast with some other people as well to talk about some topics. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for being on the Transatlantic Playbook. And I'm going to look forward to us having more conversations again. Thank you, Erica.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the day.